What would you do if you were fired for simply opening a refrigerator? For Maria Delgado, this simple act cost her a job she desperately needed, but revealed something far more valuable. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more incredible true stories of redemption and unexpected kindness. Alexander Pierce stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, gazing at the city sprawled beneath him like a glittering carpet. At 42, he had everything money could buy, a tech empire worth billions, properties on 3 continents, and a reputation as one of the most ruthless businessmen in America. What he didn't have was someone who understood him, someone who saw past the wealth to the man beneath. Not since Eliza. The thought of his late wife sent a familiar ache through his chest. 5 years had passed since cancer took her, but some days the pain felt as fresh as yesterday. He pressed his forehead against the cool glass, closing his eyes against the memories. The soft click of the door interrupted his thoughts. Maria Delgado, his new housekeeper, had arrived. Alexander straightened his posture and turned, his face settling into the mask of indifference he wore like armor. "Good morning, Mr. Pierce," Maria said, her accent softening the edges of her words. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. "Morning," he replied curtly. "I'll be working from home today. Please ensure I'm not disturbed." Maria nodded, already familiar with his preference for solitude after 3 weeks of employment. "Of course, sir. Would you like coffee before you begin?" "Black, no sugar," he said, turning back to the window. He didn't see her small smile fade as she left the room. In the kitchen, Maria moved with practiced efficiency. She had been grateful to find this position after losing her previous job when her elderly employer passed away. The pay was excellent, and despite Mr. Pierce's coldness, he was fair and punctual with her wages, something she desperately needed to help support her daughter through college and her young grandson's medical treatments. As she prepared the coffee, Maria's thoughts drifted to her family. Sophia, her daughter, was working 2 jobs while studying nursing, determined to provide a better life for her son, Miguel. The boy's asthma required expensive medications, and without health insurance, the costs were crippling. Maria sent most of her salary to them, keeping just enough for her small apartment and basic needs. She placed the coffee on a silver tray and carried it to Alexander's home office. He barely acknowledged her as she set it on his desk, already absorbed in his laptop screen. Maria slipped out quietly and returned to her duties. The morning passed in silence as Maria cleaned the vast apartment. Despite having worked there for nearly a month, parts of it still felt foreign to her. Mr. Pierce had specific instructions about certain areas: his bedroom, his late wife's studio, and oddly, the refrigerator in the kitchen. "Never open it unless absolutely necessary for your duties," he had told her firmly on her first day. "I arrange everything in a particular way." Maria had found the request strange but respected it. In her years of domestic service, she had encountered far more unusual demands from employers. Around noon, she was dusting the living room when she heard Alexander's phone ring, followed by his raised voice. The conversation sounded tense, business-related. Minutes later, he emerged from his office, face tight with stress. "I need to go to the office immediately," he said, already pulling on his suit jacket. "An emergency with the Tokyo deal. I'll be back late, don't wait up." "Yes, sir. Would you like me to prepare something you can eat when you return?" He paused, seeming surprised by the offer. "That won't be necessary," he said after a moment, then left without another word. As the door closed behind him, Maria sighed. The man lived like a ghost in his own home. She continued her work, moving to the kitchen to clean the countertops and floors. As she worked, her phone buzzed with a text from Sophia: "Mom, Miguel's inhaler is empty, and the pharmacy needs $175 for a refill. I don't get paid until Friday. Can you help?" Maria's heart sank. She had already sent most of her last paycheck to help with Sophia's tuition payment. The small amount she had left was barely enough for her own groceries until next week. She texted back, "I'll figure something out, Mija. Don't worry." But worry she did. As she finished mopping the kitchen floor, her eyes kept drifting to the refrigerator. Mr. Pierce had left so suddenly, perhaps he hadn't eaten lunch. Perhaps she could prepare something special for his return, something that might bring a moment of comfort to this man who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. Surely he wouldn't mind if she checked the contents of the refrigerator with such good intentions? After a moment's hesitation, Maria opened the refrigerator door. What she saw inside made her gasp. The refrigerator was nearly empty. A half-empty bottle of expensive scotch. A container of milk past its expiration date. A single apple, browning at the edges. And on the middle shelf, a small chocolate cake with a single candle, unlit, next to a framed photograph of a beautiful woman with warm eyes and a gentle smile. Written in elegant script on the cake was a simple message, "Happy birthday, Eliza." Maria's hand flew to her mouth. Today must be his late wife's birthday. The realization made her heart ache for her employer. She carefully closed the refrigerator, feeling as though she had intruded on something deeply private. Without thinking further, she grabbed her purse and keys. She had 2 hours before Mr. Pierce would likely return. It would be enough time. Maria hurried to the small grocery store 3 blocks away. With the little money she had left, she purchased ingredients for her grandmother's recipe, the one that had comforted her own family through difficult times. Back at the apartment, she worked quickly, preparing a simple but hearty chicken stew with warm spices and fresh herbs. As the stew simmered, filling the kitchen with its rich aroma, Maria set the table with care, using the everyday dishes rather than the formal ones. She placed a small vase with a single flower she had picked from the building's lobby arrangement. It wasn't much, but it was something. She was just finishing when she heard the key in the lock. Quickly, she removed her apron and smoothed her hair, suddenly nervous about her presumption. Alexander entered, his face drawn with exhaustion. He stopped abruptly when he noticed the set table and the smell of food. "What is this?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Maria clasped her hands together. "I thought you might be hungry after your difficult day, sir." His eyes narrowed. "You went into the refrigerator, didn't you? After I specifically instructed you not to." Maria felt her face flush. "Yes, sir. I apologize. I only wanted to." "You're fired," he cut her off, his voice cold. "Pack your things and leave immediately." The words hit Maria like a physical blow. "Mr. Pierce, please, I meant no disrespect. I only wanted to help." "I don't need your help," he snapped. "I need my privacy respected. You'll receive 2 weeks severance. Now go." Maria stood frozen, her mind racing with panic. Without this job, how would she help Sophia? How would Miguel get his medicine? "You saw it, didn't you?" Alexander asked, his voice suddenly quieter but no less intense. "The cake." Maria nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. I'm truly sorry for intruding." Something flickered across his face, pain, perhaps, or anger. "Just go," he said, turning away. With a heavy heart, Maria gathered her few belongings. As she prepared to leave, she paused at the kitchen doorway. "The stew will keep for several days," she said softly. "My grandmother always said food made with care carries healing." Then she left, closing the door quietly behind her. Alexander stood alone in his vast apartment, the smell of home-cooked food surrounding him like an embrace he hadn't felt in years. Slowly, he moved to the kitchen and looked at the table set for one, at the simple meal prepared with obvious care. He opened the refrigerator and stared at Eliza's cake. Today would have been her 41st birthday. Every year since her death, he had maintained this ritual, buying her favorite chocolate cake, placing her photo beside it, sitting alone with his grief and a bottle of scotch. With a sudden surge of emotion, Alexander slammed the refrigerator door shut. He grabbed his phone and called his head of security. "I need information on Maria Delgado," he said. "Everything you can find. Now." The next morning, Maria sat at her small kitchen table, calculating and recalculating her finances. Without her job, she would need to find work immediately. The severance would help temporarily, but it wouldn't be enough. She had already called her previous employer's daughter to ask about possible positions with friends. A knock at her door startled her. When she opened it, she was shocked to find Alexander Pierce standing in the hallway of her modest apartment building. "Mr. Pierce," she gasped. "How did you?" "May I come in?" he asked, his voice lacking its usual sharpness. Bewildered, Maria stepped aside. Alexander entered, looking strangely out of place in his tailored suit amid her simple furnishings. He held a manila envelope in his hands. "I owe you an apology," he said without preamble. "And an explanation." Maria gestured to her small sofa. "Please, sit down." Alexander remained standing. "I had you investigated last night," he admitted. "I know about your daughter Sophia. And your grandson Miguel's asthma." Maria stiffened. "Sir, my family's struggles are private. I also know that you've been sending most of your salary to them," he continued. "That you've been skipping meals to save money. That you took 3 buses to get to work each day because the subway fare is too expensive." Maria felt her cheeks burn with a mixture of shame and indignation. "Mr. Pierce, I don't understand why you're here." Alexander finally sat down, placing the envelope on the coffee table between them. 5 years ago, my wife Eliza was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. She lived for 8. His voice remained steady, but Maria could see the cost of that control in the tightness around his eyes. "Before she died, she made me promise something. She said, 'Don't let your heart die with me, Alex.' But that's exactly what happened." He looked up at Maria. "Yesterday was her birthday. Every year, I buy her favorite cake and sit alone, drinking until I can't feel the pain anymore." Maria sat down across from him, her anger softening. "I am truly sorry for intruding on your grief, Mr. Pierce." "No," he said, shaking his head. "What you did, no one has shown me that kind of simple kindness since Eliza died. I reacted badly because you caught me at my most vulnerable. But later, after you left, I ate the stew you made." He paused, a faint smile touching his lips. "It was the first home-cooked meal I've had in 5 years that didn't come from a high-end caterer. It reminded me of my mother's cooking." Alexander pushed the envelope toward her. "Inside is a check covering your severance, plus a bonus. There's also information about the Alexander and Eliza Pierce Foundation, a medical charity my wife started before she died. I've arranged for your grandson to receive full coverage for his asthma treatments through the foundation. And there's a scholarship for your daughter's nursing program." Maria stared at the envelope, unable to speak. "I'm also offering you your job back," Alexander continued, "with double your previous salary. But there's a condition." Maria found her voice. "What condition?" "That you open my refrigerator whenever you damn well please," he said, and for the first time since she'd known him, Alexander Pierce laughed, a rusty sound, as if long unused, but genuine. Tears filled Maria's eyes. "Mr. Pierce, this is too much." "No," he said, suddenly serious again. "It's not enough. You reminded me of something important yesterday. Eliza wouldn't have wanted me to live like this, alone, bitter, pushing away any chance of human connection." He took a deep breath. "The truth is, I need more than an employee. I need someone to remind me how to be human again." Maria reached out and took his hand, a gesture that would have been unthinkable just a day before. My grandmother also used to say that grief shared is grief halved. Alexander nodded, his eyes suspiciously bright. Will you come back? Yes, Maria said simply. And I'll teach you how to cook that stew yourself. In the months that followed, a remarkable transformation took place. Alexander's penthouse gradually became a home again. Maria's warmth and straightforward compassion slowly chipped away at the walls he had built around himself. He learned to cook simple meals, finding unexpected solace in the mundane tasks of chopping vegetables and stirring pots. Maria's family benefited too. Miguel's health improved with proper medical care, and Sofia excelled in her nursing program without the constant financial stress. Alexander even attended Miguel's 7th birthday party, awkwardly at first, but eventually relaxing enough to join in the children's games, to the delight of Maria's family. On the anniversary of Eliza's death, Alexander asked Maria to accompany him to the cemetery. They stood together before the elegant headstone, Maria respectfully a few steps behind. I think you'd approve, Liz, Alexander said softly to the grave. I'm trying to keep my promise now. He placed a bouquet of her favorite flowers beside the stone, then stepped back to stand beside Maria. She would be proud of you, Maria said gently. Alexander nodded, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. Thank you for checking my refrigerator that day, he said. You saved more than just my dinner. Maria smiled and took his hand. Sometimes the smallest actions can open the largest doors. As they walked back through the cemetery, Alexander realized that while his grief would always be part of him, it no longer defined him. The billionaire who had once fired his maid for opening a refrigerator had found something money couldn't buy, a second chance at living with an open heart. If this story touched you, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that reminds us all of our shared humanity. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest acts of kindness. What small act of kindness has changed your life? Share in the comments below, *.